Okay. Hello, Twitch. Hello, world. It is time for some Game of Thrones theories. Now, this is definitely not going to be a Game of Thrones specific channel, but there are definitely some Game of Thrones theories that I wanted to get out there before the series got any further. And the first one I'm going to do is the most straightforward of them, and it's one that I'm kind of surprised more people aren't talking about, but this theory is about the unstoppable army of the Stone Men that is just about to rise. Now, right now, at the end of A Song of Ice and Fire, we have Aegon the Sixth, the rightful heir to the Iron Throne, assuming he's not secretly a Blackfire or whatever. We have Aegon VI in Storm's End, one of the most magical places in Westeros, and right by his side is Jon Connington, who is infected with grayscale. Meanwhile, up at the north, up at the Night Fort, where the Night's King ruled, and which is also one of the most magical places in Westeros, we have Shireen Baratheon, the one true Queen of Westeros, rightful heir to the Iron Throne. And on top of that, she's got a whole lot of people who worship R'hllor and crazy Patchface with her. So, we have grayscale in the north at a very significant place. We have grayscale in the south at a very significant place. This definitely cannot be an accident. This isn't just a random happenstance. This is going to be something really big. We already know there is a version of grayscale that spreads quickly. We already know that it really doesn't have a cure. And we also know that it's magic because of its origins. Now, grayscale comes from a place called the Sorrows, which is in Essos on the River Rhine. The Sorrows used to be called Karain until Karain was wiped out by Valyrian dragon lords during the Second Spice War. There are a lot of wars with the Valyrians, but this was the big one. This was the one that sent Nymeria fleeing with her people to Westeros. And this is the one where Garren, Prince Garren of Karain, called down his curse. Now, speaking of magical places, the Sorrows in Karain is by far the most magical place we've seen in Westeros so far. There's really weird stuff happening there. Let's talk about the nature of the curse first of all. When Garren called down the curse, we had the Rhine flooding and killing a whole lot of people. We have mist rising, mist with foul humors, it is described. Actually, it's described twice like that. Mist with foul humors and foul fogs. And there's also a lot of strange mists up north when the magic people start getting magic-y. And there's actually a lot of mist happening in Winterfell right now at the end of Book 5. In addition to that, Garren's curse is also said to be responsible for the doom of Valyria. That's one of the little rumors it's mentioned. So the curse itself, whatever it is, was a pretty major thing, since it completely changed the geography of what's happening there and gave grayscale to a lot of people. And also resulted in the rise of the Shrouded Lord, which is an incredibly interesting character that the first time I read just kind of seemed like a weirdy background guy, but looking back through it, this is clearly a major figure. So there are multiple origins for the Shrouded Lord, which is incredibly cool. The first is that he is Prince Garren himself, and that he continues to rule as either immortal or undead. The second is the theory that there have been multiple Shrouded Lords since the curse was called down, and that the current Lord is actually a Corsair from the Basilisk Islands, which opens its own whole giant can of worms because there's a lot of weird stuff happening down there. The third origin is definitely the most interesting, and that one is The idea that the Shrouded Lord was originally a stone statue who was kissed to life by a woman from the mists. This story is very similar to the origin of the Night's King, who also became the Night's King as a result of a magic kiss from a strange magical woman who he met. There are also magical kisses in the Ironborn mythology. The most religious thing you can do as an Ironborn is to drown and then be given the kiss of life, which we know is mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and then that which is dead may never die. So this is the fact that magic kisses are happening with the story of the Night's King and the Iron Islanders adds a lot of legitimacy to the idea that a magic kiss is what started grayscale. And there's also a line that I found very interesting. And that is involving the magic kiss. And that line is, "I beg your pardon, Yolo. You do not look so pale. I was only playing with you. The Prince of Sorrows does not bestow his gray kiss lightly." Now, throughout all of this, I'd been imagining the people with grayscale as just kind of a zombie horde, totally mindless, nothing going on upstairs, just reaching around, grabbing whatever they can, touching stuff. But when I went back to read all this, it became very clear that these people are being controlled. These people are definitely under control of the Great King, of the Shrouded Lord, apologies. Although the Great King will tie into this. So, we have the Shrouded Lord, who, by all accounts, is himself infected with grayscale, or may have actually been originally made of stone. And we have his magical kingdom, the Sorrows. Now when Tyrion, Jon Connington, and young Griff, who we know is Aegon VI Targaryen, or possibly a Blackfyre, came through the Sorrows, they passed beneath the Palace of Sorrows, which used to be the Palace of Love, and came to the Bridge of Dreams, where the stone men like to congregate. They passed through it, and then something very strange happened. They passed through it again. They did not change course. The river did not move. They did not see anything happen. But nevertheless, they found themselves passing right under that same bridge again. Now, the first time that they went under the bridge, the stonemen didn't really do anything. They kind of noticed him, but they didn't really go nuts. But as they passed under the Bridge of Dreams, Tyrion decided that that would be the perfect time to reveal out loud that he knew the true identity of young Griff. He knew that he was Aegon Targaryen. And it is after he says this that they pass through the bridge again. This is really interesting because the Shrouded Lord, whether he's Garen or someone else, has a lot of reason to not like Valyrians. For him to hear that a Valyrian king who's the rightful heir to the throne of Westeros is passing right beneath him is a pretty good reason for him to kick into gear. So when I first read this chapter, I thought it was just a random attack of stonemen. But when I went back through to find notes for this video, I became convinced that the Shrouded Lord had sent stonemen directly to attack Aegon VI. And let me show you that exact quote. They keep it vague, but it's still pretty interesting. The broken bone was speckled with brown blood, but still he lurched forward, reaching for young Griff, his hands grained stiff. The boy stood staring as if he too were made of stone. I thought this was all random before, but this is definitely a direct attack. It's also worth asking, what word did that stone man say when he landed on the roof of the Shy Maid? He landed on the cabin roof so heavily that the Shy Maid seemed to rock, and roared a word down at them in a tongue that Tyrion did not know. I'm guessing if we ever found out what that word was, it would be pretty significant. Who knows if we will or not. So it definitely makes sense that the Shrouded Lord would want to get at this person. There's another interesting line that relates to this, where they just straight up say that the Shrouded Lord can hear what people are saying. Careful what you say, he listens. And the teleportation effect is just blatantly the most magical thing we've seen in the entire book series, not counting dragons, of course, because they're big, giant flame monsters made of magic. But I would say the only other place that appeared as magical as this, with a direct physical magic where you're not taking a hallucinogen to see it, like Shade of the Evening or Werewood Paste, is that doorway beneath the Night Forge, where it's a face that opens up and lets you walk through if you're a member of the Night's Watch. I would say that the teleportation in the Sorrows is actually even more magical than that. And there's just so much strangeness going on in there. Look at the ways that they describe the stone men while they're there, for example. Here's a description. You should not mock, said Ysilla. The whispering dead hate the warm and the quick, and ever seek for more damned souls to join them. Hating the warm is almost exactly how the whites are described, and the White Walkers in Old Nan's Tales. They hate that which is warm, which is incredibly. That's not just random. That definitely means something. In addition to this, another interesting fact is that there are supposed to be a whole lot of Valyrian dragon lords trapped forever beneath the waves after the flooding, infected with grayscale, basically turned to stone people, even their hearts are stone. And this is very similar to the tales of the Drowned God. Underwater magic people who can still communicate with you, that is very Drowned God. So they're pretty much all the religions, or the major belief systems of Westeros are coming together and converging here at the Sorrows with the Shrouded Lord. It's especially interesting to note. Well, wait, let me get to that part later. Or let me get to that part now. It's especially interesting to note that Tyrion drowns after his encounter and meets the Shrouded Lord in dreams. He has a dream about meeting the Shrouded Lord and getting his gray kiss from him, which is incredibly weird, especially since they just passed under the Bridge of Dreams. That can't be a coincidence. And it's also worth noting that a lot of important characters have drowned and then come back. The ones I can think of offhand, aside from every member of the Ironborn, are Duncan the Tall, who was revived by a maester who said he learned the Kiss of Life from the Iron Islanders, and Davos Seaworth, who drowned and woke up on a little rock out in the middle of the ocean and heard the voice of the Mother. Tyrion drowns after getting knocked off the boat and dragged down to the deeps by one of the stone men. And while he's down, he has a dream that he's receiving a kiss from the Shrouded Lord, who is also his father, super creepily and weirdly. When he wakes up, it turns out he was actually getting a kiss from Lemore, who is a septa of the Seven. So I find it incredibly interesting that they would pass under the Bridge of Dreams and then Tyrion would meet the Shrouded Lord in his dreams. That's another thing. It can't just be coincidence. And it's also very interesting to see that in this chapter, Tyrion describes himself as dead. He's called dead when he wakes up from being drowned. The dead dwarf has arisen. Let me show you. Our dead dwarf has returned to us. Interesting that they describe him as dead because that which is dead will never die. They even comment, you were cold as ice and your lips were blue. Blue lips is what happens when you take shade of the evening. So that's another little interesting connection, that his lips would be blue after having met the Shrouded Lord. So the Shrouded Lord can control stone men. He's infected John Connington, who is standing right next to Aegon. Meanwhile, Shireen Baratheon is up north at the Night Fort, at the wall where all magic increases. Just kicking it with stone on her face, patch face just hanging out, clearly being innocent. There's definitely something going down with this grayscale. And there are basically two things. A lot of people have commented on the connections between grayscale and the Grey King. So that is definitely something worth noting. It is entirely possible that the original Grey King had grayscale. And that definitely ties into the tale of the Long Night somehow. And there's a lot of, or not a lot, there's a couple houses in Westeros that actually have grayscale, stone-related imagery. For example, there's the father of Theon and Asha Greyjoy is Balon Greyjoy, and Balon Greyjoy's father was Quaelon Greyjoy. Quaelon had 3 wives. His 3rd wife was a lady from House Stonetree. Their child that they had together died of grayscale. That's kind of an interesting thing to happen for someone with who comes from a house with stone in their imagery. There's also some houses that just blatantly have stone hands as their images. And John Connington is at this point quite literally a stone hand. He's hand to the king, King Aegon, and his hand is infected with grayscale. Another thing that definitely can't just be a coincidence. So let's look through some more of these quotes. And actually, let's read this first bit again. He dreamt of his lord father and the Shrouded Lord. He dreamt that they were one and the same, and when his father wrapped stone arms around him and bent to give him the grey kiss, he woke with his mouth dry and rusty, and the taste of blood, and his heart hammering in his chest. Here's another thing to think about. If grayscale is just spread by the touch, and it's basically a zombie type of infection where it creates big giant hordes who spread by biting or touching, or the traditional monster horde spreading ways, then why is the Shrouded Lord so careful with who he bestows his kiss on? The Prince of Sorrows does not bestow his grey kiss lightly. If it's just a big mindless horde thing, then you want to be very careful about it. Here's another something that's interesting. Make no very vainglorious boasts, I beg you. Pride is a grievous sin. The stone men were proud as well, and the Shrouded Lord was proudest of them all. This is really interesting because this sounds very similar to the tale of the Empire of the Dawn, where the Long Night was caused by people being too sinful. That's a really weird connection, especially since the Stone Man and the Shrouded Lord were actually attacked by slaving dragon lords. One has to wonder how pride would enter into that, but nevertheless, the Shrouded Lord was proudest of them all, according to legend. So I think something's going down with this, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be revealing in the show as well, with Jorah Mormont taking care of things. Because Jorah Mormont is definitely not cured of his grayscale. And I think it's hilarious the way they're doing it. He's just down there, reaching through doors, grabbing people, touching stuff. Hey, Sam, can I shake your hand? Sure thing. Now I'm off to go meet Daenerys Targaryen. I'm going to grab her hands, touch those, give him a kiss, touch all kinds of stuff on the way. I'm going to be grabbing things. It's going to be great. Now I'm off to the wall. I'm just going to go north of the wall and touch more stuff. What's that? I got magic grayscale? I'm sure these others have nothing to do with that. They probably won't care at all. I'll just touch some more stuff. It'll all work out. So as far as the show goes, Daenerys isn't effective with the grayscale. I think she's going to be a gray king. Or a gray queen, I mean. Like the gray king of the Iron Islands, who the Greyjoys claim descendancy from. And he's probably going to spread it to some weirdo north of the wall, too. So the show's doing it, and the books are doing it. This is going to be really, really interesting. Whatever unity people form when it comes to fighting the White Walkers, if they manage to prepare anything, it's all going to be knocked down by the army of the Stone Men that's definitely going to rise. It's already confirmed in the books that there's a version of grayscale that spreads fast, the Grey Plague. It's definitely going down. And if you listen very carefully, if you go back and listen to the most recent episode, when Tyrion puts that slaver's coin into Jorah Mormont's hand, it makes a chink sound. Now that could just be some overzealous sound effects guy, or it could be a little clue that stuff is happening and that he's not cured. You'll remember that at the Red Wedding they showed Olenna Tyrell walking next to Joffrey, and they had a little chink sound effect for when she dropped that poison in. So I think this is going down in the north. I think it's going down in the south. Stone Men are rising. Shrouded Lord controls them. It is going to be intense. Let's talk about... Let me make sure I've covered everything. So some things to wonder about. What was the word that Stone Man said? Who is the mist woman who kissed the Shrouded Lord into life? What is her relation to the dead woman who gave the kiss to the Night's King? If the kiss spreads grayscale, why is the Shrouded Lord so selective about giving it away to people? Does he have... Are there more Shrouded Lords, kind of like the Night's King has other White Walkers hanging out with him? And what's up with all of those dead Valyrian lords trapped beneath the waves, whose breath is said to be what creates the fog? That's kind of a weird little touch. And honestly, it brings up the question of what is the true nature of ghosts in general in A Song of Ice and Fire? Are there a lot of ghosts of old kings or lords out there still caring about stuff because they're trapped in the halls of the drowned god or in the halls of the Shrouded Lord? What is going on with these weird kings who show up in people's visions? And actually, one interesting thing to think about, now that Tyrion has gotten the kiss from the Shrouded Lord in his dreams, or in his dreams, which he had while passing under the Bridge of Dreams in the magical land of the Shrouded Lord, is he going to turn into a Shrouded Lord, and is that different from a person with grayscale? Is the Shrouded Lord basically a Night's King type of figure, but just with stone instead of ice, just hanging out in Essos on the River Roaring? It could be. I'm very curious to see how this goes. The Shrouded Lord will definitely be huge somewhere in the books. Probably never mentioned in the show, but I'm interested to see how it plays out in both. And this is the first of the theories I had to get out there. There's definitely going to be a gigantic army of snowmen completely messing up everyone's plans. Who knows if they work with the White Walkers or not? Couldn't say. But shit's definitely going down. Now, the last thing I want to talk about before I end this video, and to make sure I covered everything, is just the way Tyrion talks about himself. Throughout this, talking about, well, first of all, dying and being brought back to life with the magic kiss, blue lips, all of that. But also he talks about himself haunting the Seven Kingdoms. There are worse ways to die than drowning, and if truth be told, he had perished long ago back in King's Landing. It was only his revenant who remained, a small, vengeful ghost who throttled Shay and put a crossbow bolt through great Lord Tywin's bowels. No man would mourn the thing he'd become. I'll haunt the Seven Kingdoms, he thought, sinking deeper. They would not love me living, so let them dread me dead. They would not love me living, so let them dread me dead. When he opened his mouth to curse them all, black water filled his lungs, and the dark closed in around him. That's the last thing he says before meeting the Shrouded Lord. Is it possible that Tyrion is going to become a Shrouded Lord? A type of, whatever it is linking these immortals, ice, stone, fire, magic, whatever. Is Tyrion going to become one of them? I feel like this chapter is really, really foreshadowing that. I do not want to meet the Shrouded Lord. Tyrion filmed back into his clothes again and groped his way to the stair. Or even more interesting, beyond the veil of dream, the sorrows were waiting for him. Why are they still waiting for him if he's already gone? This is a really strange chapter. The whole thing with Grayscale and the Stone Men is really strange. There's definitely going to be an army of Stone Men, and I'm pretty sure Daenerys is going to be the Stone Queen. In the books, it might be Daenerys who's the Stone Queen, and maybe Aegon will be a Stone King? It's hard to say, but there's definitely a lot of weird old magic activating. And, as I said, shit's going down. Army of the Stone Men will rise, and it will be epic. And I think that's my video. Okay. The next video I do is going to be on how Peter Baelish is clearly working with the Night's King. Now, in the meantime, thanks for listening. Shireen Baratheon is the one true queen of Westeros. I am out of here.